Me and my girlfriend were robbed and how she acted during makes me want to dump her. 2 weeks ago me and my girlfriend were walking home while a little drunk after a party and we were robbed by an armed mugger. The guy stopped us, pulled out his firearm and told us to give him our stuff. I immediately gave him my wallet and phone. My girlfriend decided to be difficult. I don't know why. She is usually very smart, but this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen her done. She refused to give him her phone or purse. She decided that the best course of action was to argue with him. She kept yelling at me to do something which led to the guy keeping his weapon on me the entire time. She was just doing too much. She had no sense of self-preservation and it was very clear she valued her material possessions more than my life. Eventually I took both from her and gave it to the guy and he ran off. Afterwards she was pissed at me for keeping us both alive. I grew up in the hood and I have had stuff like this happen more than once. I know the best way to make it out of these situations is to just give them your shit so they'll leave. Yeah, it sucks losing money, but that's a lot better than getting hurt or worse in the streets over a few $100s. Both of our lives are worth more than that, but she apparently didn't see it that way. Her utter lack of desire to keep both of us alive over money is a huge wake-up call to me. Like if she's gonna be this dumb in a potentially life or death situation, how can I trust her to be with me throughout the rest of my life?
My friend is mad at me for wanting to date someone that was mean to them when we were kids, but they're still friends with a person who essayed me when I was 19. I reconnected with this guy I crushed on when I was in elementary school. The guy also liked me and assumed my gay friend and I were a couple, so he'd bully him with his friends and call him gay and the F-slur. I know it's wrong, but we were kids, literally 10 years old. This guy's younger brother is also gay, but he is very supportive and he's obviously grown and changed in a lot of good ways. We're 26 now? But my friend gets really mad when I talk about hanging out with him or the ways he's changed since we were 10. He's like, no, he was just mean to me and I don't like him as a person, and refuses to actually hang out with or get to know him. I think what bothers me about it the most is that my friend hangs out with his friend who essayed me when I was 19. Everything had started out consensual, but he got really aggressive and the more I tried to back out, the more violent he got. I even tried screaming and crying but nothing helped. I was scared I wasn't going to make it out alive. It's worse than that because he actually has had multiple women accuse him of this to the police. He's been arrested for it and attempted to do this multiple times. My friend knows this but still defends him and even hangs out with him. I just don't understand why it's wrong for me to hang out with someone who, while bullying and homophobia is wrong, changed over the course of a decade, but I'm supposed to be cool with him hanging out with my assaulter, who still do this to women. It just makes me mad and upset.
Today I messed up when I missed all the signs that my roommate was interested in me. My roommate moved out this morning. She's immigrating. The two of us have shared an apartment for almost 2 years. I've always been attracted to her, but I didn't want to be that guy who tried to screw the first female roommate he got, so I did my best to keep our relationship as platonic as possible. However, last night being the last night my roommate and I were going to be roommates, I decided to tell her that I always thought she was attractive. I also made it clear that I didn't expect anything to happen. I just wanted to get it off my chest so we could laugh about it without worrying that it might be awkward the next day, and the day after that, etc. My roommate playfully punched me on my shoulder and said she gave me so many opportunities. I had no idea what she was talking about, which prompted her to provide the following examples. 1. When we were dancing in the club and the song finished, our faces were so close together, our foreheads were literally touching, but instead of kissing her at that moment, I apparently rolled my eyes to the back of my head and asked if I looked like Storm in X-Men. 2. When she asked me to show her what kind of pee I enjoyed watching, I showed her mine and she volunteered to show me hers. We were sitting on the couch, watching people screw each other, and still I did nothing. 3. When I was hospitalized, she said she would be happy to nurse me when I get home, but only if I promised to wear nothing but my hospital gown. 4. When she asked me for a piggyback ride to her room when she was done showering and only wearing a towel. 5. When she confessed to sleeping in one of my shirts because I was away for the weekend and she wanted to feel close to me. I can go on. It was a long list, but this was the top 5 for me. It seems so obvious now, but at the time I was effing clueless. I think I was too focused on not crossing that line that my brain completely blocked out any signs of intimate chemistry. My roommate and I laughed about it, but deep down I was so angry at myself for losing out on what could have been a more exciting experience because I was unable to connect the dots.
Front desk receptionist mentioned my essay. My day is ruined and I don't know where to go from this. I'm a freshman university student who was referred to specific doctor from the physical therapist for my major. Everything was presumably going well, but I was nervous as this was my second time really going to the doctors alone. I realized I wasn't in the database for some reason after submitting my information in at the kiosk, so I went to get help from a receptionist so I could carry on with my appointment. She asked for my personal information and everything was going fine until it was time for me to pull out an insurance card. Upon seeing it was Medicaid, she suddenly got so cold to me for no reason, exclaiming in a louder tone than before, "We don't take Medicaid here, like at all." She went around trying to figure out how else to help me, but was very obviously pissed off at me. I overheard her and her coworker talking crap about another patient. At one point she was looking through records to see what was going on, but for some reason she felt the need to mention the last reason I went to that hospital, which was my essay. She said, "Yeah, the last thing it shows in here is, come closer." Then she whispers in my ear kind of loudly, "Your essay." I froze and immediately tried not to cry the entire time while keeping my composure. It's has been 3 hours and I'm still crying about this. Had a breakdown about it in front of my professor, who told me that it was unprofessional of her, but I still can't help but to feel like I'm overreacting. My husband cheated on me with his co-worker. The reason? I have an IQ of 152. My husband always complimented me on being bright. I love that about him. He had such pride that his wife is smart and he would tell this to anyone, but everything changed about 6 months ago when he insisted that we would take IQ tests. I never done this before because I really don't care about these things. Anyway, I scored 152 and he scored 133. He was in shock and very subdued for several weeks afterwards. I honestly noticed his sudden moodiness and I knew why, but it was just too awkward to try and talk to him about it. I didn't want to embarrass him. What made it worse is that we did the test via his work, so his coworkers knew about it. Things went back to normal after a couple of months. He wasn't as affectionate anymore and he certainly never brought up my intelligence nor complimented me on it ever, but he was pleasant and happy again. It turned out he only went back to normal because he started getting with a coworker. I found out everything when I saw his friend's conversation with him, about how he felt turned off by me after the test. He brags about his affair and apparently his friends and brother and all their wives know about it. It's so odd because I'm still the same me. I didn't change and I never take these tests seriously, and he always knew that I was smart. What changed now? I haven't spoken to him yet about anything, not sure I will either. Clearly his affair made him feel good about this whole thing again because he's back to being pleasant to be around. I love my life and I don't want to change it, especially when our children are still too young and need us. I just needed to get this off my chest and get some perspective. Why this sudden turn off by me?
I came out as gay in my 40s and I think I'm destroying my life. I 41 male married my wife 40 female 14 years ago. I was madly in love with her, but about a year in, I realized she didn't really enjoy making love. I repeatedly asked if it was me, or if I could do anything to help, but she always just said love making had never been something she was interested in. We had our first child 5 years later, planned, which made the love making even more mechanical, after which love making went from extremely sporadical to non-existent. Around that time my best friend, 34 male, moved to the city and we started exploring. A few months after he told me he was gay and that he wanted me to come explore the scene with him because he knew no one else, I was happy to do it and started going out to gay clubs and such, and meeting a ton of guys who I would just introduce to my friend. He is very shy, and go home. Until one day I met a guy who made it abundantly clear that he wasn't interested in my friend, but only me. I laughed it off and told him I was married, but he kept insisting, until I decided to kiss him just to see what it felt like. Suffice to say, it changed my whole life. Flash forward 3 years, and we became friends with benefits. He taught me so much, and for the first time in years, I felt complete. He eventually moved away, to China, and we slowly fell out of touch, but I could never go back to my old life. I continued meeting guys and having short affairs, always coming home to my family. A few weeks ago, I decided I couldn't continue lying to everyone, and came out to my wife. She was initially incredibly supportive, but as it set in, has become more and more resistant to the idea. We are sleeping in separate rooms now, and she can barely look me in the eye. I was seeing a guy, and after I told him that I had come out, he told me he was proud, but that he wanted to end things because he didn't want to deal with all of my baggage of having a child. That got me thinking of how incredibly hard it's going to be to meet someone who is willing to accept this part of my life. It also got me thinking about how, even with no physical intimacy, it is so nice to come home to people who love you, and how I might have just destroyed that for myself. Am I destined to just be alone? I'm 41 years old and my future feels as uncertain and terrifying as it did when I was 23.
I'm fed up with my husband demanding trios, to the point that I'm considering leaving for good. I admit I've had and been open to trios with a few people in the past, but they weren't serious relationships, more like friends with benefits. They were also only with men. My husband and I have been together for 5 years, married for 18 months, and he keeps bringing up how he specifically wants to have a trio with me and a woman. I'm not attracted to women, never have been and never will be. It's not how I'm wired. At first I told him that I'm just not interested in women and don't want our relationship to be like that, both in terms of trios generally and this kind of trio in particular, and he seemed to accept it. Later he told me it was unfair, that my other partners got the whole me, because I'd had trios with them but not him. I told him to shove it and he backed off. Now he's back on it and he's saying I'm biphobic by refusing to have a trio with him and a woman. I told him I'm not attracted to women and don't want to have any trios with him at all, especially not when he's acting like a demanding and an entitled baby. He said it was by erasure, and wouldn't lower his voice, so I left and checked into a hotel. I'm back at home now and he's been silently fuming the whole time. I found one of my Pride shirts in the trash and he says it was an accident, and we both know he's lying. I'm thinking I might need to leave for good, but I want to give him time to grow up and learn the word no, if only because of how expensive a divorce is. No solutions, just venting.
My stepson called me dad in front of his friends today, and I'm still smiling about it. I've been with my wife for 4 years now, and she has a 12-year-old son from a previous relationship. He's a good kid and has never hated me, but it's always been clear that he misses his real dad. Most of the time, he just calls me by my first name, and although it's not my favorite thing, I would never force him to call me dad. We've had our bonding moments, but there was always this invisible line that neither of us seemed to cross. Today was a special day though. He wanted to go to an amusement park with his friends and, to my surprise, he asked me to come along. I was already touched by the invitation, so of course, I said yes. We all piled into the car, excitement in the air, and that's when it happened. One of his friends, a new face I hadn't seen before, asked who I was. My stepson turned to him, and said, "This is my dad." I couldn't help but smile, and I think he noticed because he looked at me and rolled his eyes while laughing. It was a playful, genuine moment, and it filled me with a joy I hadn't felt in a long time. We spent the day at the amusement park, riding roller coasters, eating cotton candy, and playing games. Right now, they're all trying to win a big prize at one of the park's challenges, and I'm sitting on a bench nearby, still smiling. I know this isn't something huge or earth-shattering. But for me, it's more than that. This is genuinely one of the happiest days I've had in a while. It's a small step, but it feels like a big leap in our relationship. My stepson called me dad, and in that simple word, I felt a connection and acceptance that's hard to put into words. I'm not just the guy married to his mom. Today, even if just for a little while, I was his dad. And that means the world to me. I'm scared of my wife, and it low-key turns me on. Let me start off by saying that I'm a 27-year-old guy, and my wife is 26. We've been together for 9 years and married for 7. It's safe to say that our relationship has grown in ways I never thought possible, but I've stumbled upon a realization that I never thought I'd admit to. I'm kind of turned on by how intimidating my wife can be. I've always been an introvert. I shy away from confrontation and generally just prefer to be left to my own devices. When my wife and I started dating when we were around 17, it was she who did all the pursuing. I had liked her for like 3 years, but never had the courage to tell her. So, when I finally did, she took charge and asked me out. In fact, she initiated almost every milestone in our relationship. She's an extrovert to the core, loud, fierce, and never backing down, especially if she knows she's right. And those are all qualities I genuinely love about her. But a couple of weeks ago, something strange happened. I was out with my friends, and we were casually talking about our spouses. One of my friends made a comment about how intense my wife can be. And without thinking, I blurted out that it kind of turned me on. I immediately blushed and felt embarrassed, staying quiet for the rest of the outing. But the thought stuck with me. When I got home, I started thinking about it more and realized how much her attitude and strong nature resonated with me, and not just in an intimate way. Whenever she's passionate about something and stands up for it, I find myself feeling a surge of pride and excitement. I can't help but smile like a goofy teenager, thinking, that's my wife. Today, something happened that brought all these feelings to the forefront again. We got into a bit of a fight. We usually don't argue in front of the kids, but we do have moments when we're not as loving to one another. She was feeding our daughter, and when I walked into the room, she gave me the nastiest glare you could think of. I was taken aback, and yet, I felt this strange thrill. I can't quite put my finger on why I feel this way or if this is even normal.
I hate the way my boyfriend proposed to me, twice. The first time he proposed I was pregnant and well aware he was planning it. He even told me that he had finally gotten the ring sized. I came home with my other 2 kids and in the middle of me talking to them he asked, "Will you marry me?" We said this from time to time just being sweet, so I laughed and said of course while continuing to handle my children who were being difficult. He then pulled out the ring. I was instantly upset but tried to act happy. There was just no thought into it whatsoever. No dinner, no cute event, not even maybe my kids holding up a cute sign. I just wanted something. Just in the middle of me parenting my children after a long day of work. It hurt. He eventually realized I was upset because being pregnant I really couldn't hold back the disappointment. He said he would make it up to me and that he didn't realize it was important. I expressed how we wouldn't be able to afford a nice wedding and we were already doing everything backwards, so I just wanted a sweet proposal. I never planned to be married twice and I wanted a good memory. Fast forward about a year later. The baby was napping and my other 2 kids were with their biological father. My boyfriend and I made love, and right after he just said again, "Will you marry me?" I said of course again and he pulled out the ring. He later said he couldn't think of anything. I just said it was fine and I was happy, but honestly I'm not. Literally no effort again. He knows I will say yes, we have a kid together, we live together, and it's what I want, but I still wanted romance. He could have had a onesie for the baby made that said, "Will you marry me?" Maybe a nice speech, breakfast in bed, anything. Like what the F? I'm struggling with PPD, my body is wrecked, I'm sleep deprived, and have already been feeling worthless. This just solidifies how unimportant I really am. I don't know how to shake this and I honestly don't even want to announce it. I just feel like going to the courthouse and getting it over with because at this point it just feels like an obligation rather than what 2 people do when they are in love and want to be together forever.
One of my professors has been participating in a game with a class all semester, and he has no idea. Today was the last class of the semester and therefore the last round of the game, so I just had to share. As an FYI, we are allowed to have our computers open in this class, and if the professor knew what we were up to, he would 100% be on board, but he can't because that would mess everything up. Let me explain. During every class, everyone is assigned a word, via a spreadsheet we all share with each other. Everyone has to use their word as part of a discussion with the professor as casually as they can. If they are successful, they win. If the professor comments on the word, like saying how random it was, they lose. If they laugh at someone else's word, they lose. If they don't say their word, they lose. Y'all, it has been so fun. We've been keeping track of the best ones and I wanted to share a few because I haven't been able to share with anyone. Hippos are people too. I laughed at that one so I lost that round. Can you get kicked out of McDonald's for eating a Baconator? What's the opposite of tomfoolery? You can replace oils with applesauce in a lot of recipes. Save this one because it was a fun fact that I didn't know before. I'm not the sharpest knife in the electrical socket. I would judge a first date by how good the free breadsticks are. This was mine and I was proud of it because it's true. Just wanted to share because it's been a well-kept secret since August. Hopefully someone finds it as amusing as we all have. We're not going to fill him in on it just yet because most of us, if not all, will have him next semester as well and we want to keep the game going.